All right. So let's get into the mechanics of some of this stuff. I'm going to very quickly kind of drive us through content because I want to revisit it, but I don't want to explain it because I think we accept most of it today. Right? Buyers of today are radically different than buyers of the past. Right? It's kind of an old shtick. I've used this slide for about 4 years now. But I would be remiss in leaving it out. This is you, the consumer, but it's also the business buyer. Right? They shop anonymously. Right? They don't want to disclose. They're allergic to sales professionals. Right? They come into sales cycles highly informed, not necessarily highly educated. Right? And they're risk resistant. They're expecting an immediate time to value. They're less interested in teaching someone about their business, waiting long periods of time for some solution to materialize, and then maybe or maybe not realizing business value. Right? So it's just a fundamental change in psychologically how they engage. Right? So it obviously shows up in what they're looking for. Now this is a true story. Not that the other one was a lie. Just for clarity. Right? True story. So who is married? Right. Yeah. So hey, my wife comes to me a few years ago, says, "Hey, I want a new camera." Right? We got 3 kids, wants to pick up photography. So what does a smart husband do? Goes out, buys the most expensive camera I could find that I thought she could operate. Spare no expense. I love this woman dearly. Mostly I'm afraid of her. So anyway, I travel a lot for a reason. So I go out, I buy one of these things. Right? And it's Christmas Day, so she opens it up. Now, I know a little bit about photography, enough to be dangerous, but not a lot. But anyway, so she cracks this thing open, gets it charged, kids are running around, and she's taking pictures of the kids. Now, who here knows how to work a camera like this? Yeah, so anyway, so she's pointed, takes a picture, and then there's about a 4-second delay before the shutter goes. So, I'm like, hey, honey, tip for you. There's this thing called an aperture. You might want to, and she gives me the look of death, right? Don't tell me what to do. I'm an educated, intelligent woman. Okay, right? Better to be happy than right. So off I go. So about 2 years later, I'm not making any of this up. About 2 years later, we have thousands of photos of fuzzy children, and we don't know which one is Lucas, which one is Kylan, and which one is Amber. Sometimes they're bigger or smaller, so you can figure it out. But anyway, there's 2 options. One, hey, Sharka, you might want to think about learning how to use that thing properly. And badly. Right? Or you go out and you buy one of these, which I did. Now, does this have less complexity? Less features, less functions? For sure. But now I got hundreds of pictures of kids, and I know who they are. Right? This thing is collecting dust, this other one. And of course, what do we use today to take our photos? Something like this, right? So this is an analogy for today's modern buyer. Right? We spent years and years and years enriching ourselves building things like that for them. Tell us what you want, we'll build it for you. Customer knows exactly what they want. Right? That's the inherent flaw in solution selling, by the way. It's fundamentally predicated on a belief the customer knows what they want. A good sales professional finds out enough about what they want, it's pretty easy to go build it for them. It doesn't mean it's going to solve any business problems. But anyway, at the end of the day, this is the progression that we've seen. So that psychology I talked about in the previous slide has shown up in the demand. So the demand today is a mixture of these 3 things. So anyone that tells you all that people want is on the far right-hand side for you, they don't understand the market. There's going to be customers that want that, there's customers that want that, and then there's customers that want that. How many people here have more than one sales motion? Like more than one documented sales process? Yes, smattering of hands. If you sell those 3 solution sets, you need 3 different sales methodologies. But most partners today use the one they've always used, and they apply it to whatever shows up. So I'm going to share with you in the afternoon specifically how those 3 sales motions are different, right? And here's where it shows up in your world, right? So this is kind of every deal, whether it's a 4-week sales cycle or a 4-month sales cycle. There's a business problem. Someone identifies they got to fix something. There's a decision somewhere down the road. And in the past, what would happen is a prospect would raise their hand 15% of the way through that journey. right? To bring the sales professionals in to educate them on what their offers are. Make sense? Right? So we've all heard the statistics, right, about where that is going. But what we know is that marketing was responsible for 0 to 15. And it was intercept marketing, right? Like intercept, like outbound, phone someone, interrupt their day, send them an email, interrupt their morning, right? Try to get them to an event, right? And once you identified something, give it to sales as fast as you can, right? And let them do their job. Got the lead out the door. That was the model. And we funded it that way, right? So now, of course, we've got this buyer 2.0 who is engaging much later in the sales cycle. And we see this around the world. There's not a region on the planet that I've worked in where this isn't so true today. And it wasn't always that way. I've watched it roll through countries. It came through the US first. Right? Now it's rolling through Asia. But we've got this late stage engagement where you've got what we think is a highly educated buyer doing a bunch of research and then reaching out to a bunch of companies on a short list when they've pretty much figured out what they think they need. But there's another engagement point back here. Right? So we're intercepting people on websites with unique call to actions, right? With contact us buttons, with webinars and things like that. People are telling us who they are early in their journey, and marketing is taking all of these early stage engagements and they're sending them to sales as well, without separating the two. Now I will tell you, if you think about 100 new leads from your website, or from Microsoft, or from partnerships that you have, it doesn't matter what the source is. 85 to 90% of them are going to fall into that buyer 2.0 early stage engagement, where there's no budget, there's probably no executive support, there's no scope that's been defined. They're just kicking the tires. They just want your video. They just want your white paper. They're just sniffing around. So sales professionals today have never had to deal with a higher volume of crap leads. Like they're wasting all their time, trying to qualify crap leads that are 12 to 18 months away from ever turning into anything that might smell like money. Right? So that's where we see this change in buying behavior kind of impact the acquisition of customers. You don't have one buyer out there now, you got two. And you might even have 3 different types of buyers based on I want the complex, I'm special snowflake camera, all the way through to I want to use something tomorrow. What do you got that we can implement today? Right? So you can obviously see the big impacts. So marketing is now responsible not just from 0 to 15, or arguably all the way up to 65, but now you got to build some kind of website that people find. You got to get found. You got to invest in stuff that people will trade their name for just to get found, right? So you got this investment to make before there is even a prospect to be captured. And that runs all the way through to the point where they raise their hand on a real deal, right? Because if you intercept someone back here at this early stage buyer 2.0 engagement, you very quickly call them qualify or triage them, realize there's nothing here, but there might be some time, so they go into more of a long-term nurture. Right? So there's assets that need to be produced around that. So you got to get found, you got to produce assets, right? And then you hand it over to the sales team for a very, very short but intense sales cycle. First objective of a sales professional is today, what do you know? That's it. Like, what do you know? What have you researched? What do you know about us? Right? Where's my starting point? Are you way back here or way over here? So sales professionals' skill sets have to evolve, and they have to start to do their best work early, not late. I'm going to talk about that this afternoon as well. Right? But in the cloud, people don't make those big commitments like they used to. David opened up this morning about the 1,800 seat opportunity for Office 365. Right? Close those when you can. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to get someone that says, hey, I've got 1,800 seats, but we're going to start with a pilot of 80. You still got the sales cycle costs that go along with it, right? And now you need some mechanism post-decision to drive that upsell, cross-sell, consumption, or you end up with a high churn rate. So I don't know about you, but that looks pretty different to me. Right? Now you go back to Brent's comments about how much the average partner spends. He was being very gracious on the bottom end in terms of the 1 to 1.5%. When we kind of dig into some of these partner P&Ls, we've seen partners that spend as little as 0.5% of their total revenue on marketing. Right? And the top end number that Brent mentioned, the 7 to 10%, that's the real number. Right? Why do you need to spend 7 to 10% of your overall revenue on marketing? It's because you've got to actually manage 120% of the buying journey. Today, the majority of the money is actually spent on the cost of customer acquisition related to sales. Right? So depending upon the type of solution you bring to market, right, if it's a large, complex solution, your mix is going to be a bit different. If you're focused on repeatable solutions that you want to populate through AppSource and Azure Marketplace, well, then it's going to be skewed a little bit more towards that. So what I want to do as we go through the day is provide you with some examples of real partners, websites, and real motions that you can kind of learn from. But that's the fundamental problem that I see out there today. We're coming from a world of, I'm going to find the prospect, and we're quickly moving to a world of the prospect is going to find me. And so what I see is we need to kind of readjust the underlying assumptions around how we collect those customers. So just kind of, I want to do a litmus test in the room. How many people are kind of feeling this? Yeah, okay. Whew, I can stay. That's good news.
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Yes, I want to get a mic down.
I can talk really loud.
And I'll repeat.
So when you were talking on that little graph thing,
Yeah.
what's your take on some of these websites? Don't want to yell into that. What's your take on some of those website products that come back and tell you actually who is on your site? Somebody from Bob's Burger Barn was on your site today, and then go call Bob's Burger Barn and try and find Nick.
Yeah.
And tell him he needs Office 365.
What do I think about that stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, if I was on your website and then you called me up an hour later, I'd feel like that's pretty creepy.
That's my stance. I'm sitting my marketing people telling me it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, so I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Right, so a bit creepy to be called up after you've been trolling someone's website. But I will tell you that many of the high-performing partners that do invest a fair bit in marketing do use tools like that, but the tactics that they use after the fact are a bit different. Right? So if they know it's Bob's Burger Barn, they're probably not going to send them, any kind of incremental information about manufacturing. So they'll use that information to say, hey, let's then spend some content that's focused on retail. If they're fortunate enough to collect the information. Here's the challenge with finding out who's on your website. Oh, it gets worse as we go, but it'll get better in the end, I promise. Right? Here's my belief. There's what people in life, there's how people in life, and there's why people in life. Right? Now, my belief is we all start out at what, and some of us make it all the way to why. If you're in the room today, unless you're actually in the wrong room, you're why people. You're why people. Right? So how many of you in the room here have been on a website in the last 30 days? And you're sort of halfway through filling out some form, and you just stop and abandon. Yeah. Right? So whether you know it or not, what happened in your brain during that moment was, hey, what I'm giving is not worth what I'm getting. It's just a simple mathematical equation. And it could be the realization, oh my God, they want 14 pieces of data. Right? So it's not an equal exchange. Or the phone calls are going to start tomorrow. Right? So what do you think a what person, and just think about sort of the technical, the execution, the end user, would need to receive in order for them to give up their name on a website? What would the dollar value be worth, roughly? Yeah, $5, $1. You ever seen anyone at a trade show, and I know some of you used to be them, right, with the big bags of stuff? Yeah, we all have that, right? And you get home and you're like, oh, geez, I paid $50 for extra luggage. Is I going to throw it all out? Like that's so now you move up to the how people. How people are management. They're responsible for lines of business. They're responsible for team members. Do you think they want a little bit more for their name? What about why people? What about you? You going to trade your name for a brochure? Right. So we took us down a bit of a path over here, but there's a lot of tools out there right? But if you don't have content on your website that kind of appeals to the what, the how, and the why people, they're never going to trade their name for it. So it's a lot easier to create rich content that someone feels comfortable trading their contact information for, because if you don't have that content, then you got to go to the creepy tools. Oh, just random luck. I happened to be dialing for dollars today, and were you on our website an hour ago? Oh, what are the odds of that? The planets are aligned. It's a sign. I think the more useful stuff in terms of monitoring behavior on websites is where are people spending their time, right? So the heat maps around where do they hover, where do they read, what do they consume, that stuff's more useful than necessarily the IP address. All right, so I'm going to get back on track. I get distracted a lot. I got to apologize in advance. But that was a super important question.
But I have a comment, because we do subscribe to that. I know, I don't know, I mean, I enjoy looking at it once a month or whatever, my sales people look at it.
Yeah.
But it's after you've reached out. It's after you've reached out. Then you say, you know, I made a call on this company. It had 200 people. We were a great fit. They never even looked at our website. They never went there. So, you know, they didn't call any of the references. I mean, they're not worth pursuing. I then reached out personally because I see they're not engaged. Whereas when I go on a call or when my people go on the call, I can say, yeah, we had this event and now they're looking at what we told them to look at. So I can see that it's effective afterwards. I'm just saying, okay, follow through. That's how I would use the, you know, monitoring of the website to see who comes to it.
Yeah, great feedback, right? If you do go to an important proposal presentation and no one goes to your website, that is a warning sign. Yeah. I use it a lot. I do a lot of whiteboarding. Right? So one of the pieces of guidance that I give to sales professionals is when you've done a whiteboard experience with a senior person within an organization and they do not take a picture of the whiteboard when you're done, you are doomed. Right? So it's the same thing. What we're talking about here is kind of the online version of that. Is that there is nobody from an organization that you're pursuing paying any attention on your website, warning danger. Time to be disruptive, do something different. All right. How many people have seen something like this before? The partner assessment that Brent talked about earlier. Okay, we've got a couple here in the room. Okay, so I'm going to encourage you to download this. There's a website I'm going to show you in a moment. This is a tool that your PDM is going to want to review with you, and I want to put a little bit more color. It's on the magic landing page that's coming up in 2 or 3 slides. Everything that we're going to cover today, you guys got. It's all there. Yeah. Right. So I want to kind of briefly revisit this partner assessment because it covers about 8 to 10 years of work that we've done working with partners, to Brent's point, kind of digging around in their P&L, looking at how they collect customers, looking at their profitability. And what we've learned over that time is there's actually only a handful of metrics that are indicative of the probability or the likelihood of success. Right? And so there's 2 dimensions that we look at. Right? And again, this is ingrained in the PDM training. Our organization developed the curriculum for the PDMs. So if you don't like it, we're to blame. Right? But this is a key piece, is what's the truth about where our business is today, right, relative to our peers in the ecosystem. Right? So what we believe to align with the vision of where Microsoft would like to take the partner community in the future is there's 2 dimensions. The first is your ability to collect customers, ideally at scale, but that's not important to everybody. And what we know is that there's 3 components to that. Does your company have momentum? Right? Because you will need some capital to invest in the cloud, overstating the obvious. Right? So it's kind of difficult to make bold investments when you're going backwards. So the first thing we always look for in working with a partner is, do they have any forward momentum? Right? And I'm not going to take us through all the metrics. But what we've done on the right-hand side over here is added in drop-downs, green, yellow, red, of what we see from your peers globally. Now that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the exact green, yellow, red of your region. Right? When you work in India and Dubai and France and Germany and the United States and Canada, you're going to get some variation. Right? So don't get too wrapped around the axle in the actual numbers, although trust me, there's a lot of data behind them. but really rank yourself relative to my peers in my ecosystem. Do I think I'm overperforming, underperforming, or I'm pretty much average? Now, so you'll see in there you've got recurring revenue, profitability, churn rate, all those things that show the business is moving forward. The next one is marketing capacity. So what is your organization's capacity to execute marketing campaigns? How many people here have a dedicated marketing leader that is not related to you? Oh, a lot fewer hands now, eh? They're pretty funny. Yeah, so I can't make this stuff up. So during these workshops around the industry partner program, right, I'd be on site for a couple of days with the biggest partners in Europe, did it for years, and you sort of, 2 days, you meet everybody. So anyway, what I learned is that a lot of partner owners will hire a relative for marketing. To the point where I'll go into, it's less in North America than there is in Europe, but I'll go into a partner organization and I can walk up to someone if I'm there for a couple days and I'll say, hey, you must be marketing. How did you know? That's the Apple MacBook. But then I'll say, hey, who are you related to? I'll be right 30 to 40% of the time. So you think back to the changing buying behavior, the importance of marketing, the strategic investment that needs to be made in marketing, and this is not a marketing pitch deck, I'm not going to, but it's a core to this. Would you hire your niece or nephew to run the professional services organization? Generally not, right? So one of the key things we look for in assessing partner ability to collect customers is, do they actually have a marketing leader with an equal seat at the table, in terms of the executive room. There's some other metrics in there. And then there's sales effectiveness. And of course, the metrics that are in there are around focus, cost of customer acquisition, right? Systems in place, repeatability, blah, blah, blah. Right? And I think the real value in these things really sit in the numbers that we've been able to collect over the years. Right? So if we had an extra day, we'd stop now and kind of have you spend some time individually kind of going through one of these assessments and kind of spending some time figuring it out. But it is a key activity that you'll be asked to do with your PDM. All I can encourage you to do is be as truthful as you can, right? Because it'll show at the end how strong you are at customer acquisition. The other dimension is the maturity of your solution set, right? So that's that's about differentiation, specialization, right? So how focused is the company, right? In any one given segment, workload, right? Or solution area, right? Have we developed any IP, in terms of the solution maturity itself, right? Is that a question up there? Do you still have the question?
I still have a question, yes. Do you have any way of quantifying this in terms of, what's a typical partner that you're talking about? What might be their revenue, their headcount, their... Is this an amalgamation of everything you've ever seen in your life, including bears and fish?
Very good question. So to create the assessment itself, we really had to contemplate SIs, MSPs, ISVs, right, as well as some of the channel one's a bit of a different beast altogether, right? So what I would say is this represents an amalgamation, but we don't see a significant difference from one partner profile type to the next. Certainly with SIs, we don't see a lot of depth in the solution areas, right? When we're working with ISVs, we actually don't see a tremendous amount of depth when it comes to sales and marketing. So there's going to be variations in here, right? But are you leaving because you hate it?
No,
okay.
I really like this stuff.
Okay, whew. Really had to say that, really. 150 people. Yeah. Yeah. Priming the witness. Yeah. But here's where it kind of shows you. So when you answer the responses to these things, and there's a little bit of weighting that we put into it, because some things are more important than others, is it'll show your strength in customer acquisition may be high, your depth of solution may be low, but that might be the right model for an MSP. So it's not about making anyone right or wrong, good or bad. It's just saying, here's what we found after a decade of focusing in on partner metrics. Here's the ranges that we sort of see out there. And it's just information for you and the PDM that you work with to start to plan around where do we make investments. So if I have a partner that's really strong in customer acquisition, right? You might think logically, well, let's double down on getting deeper into certain solution areas. But the other answer may be, let's focus on what we're good at. Right? Let's collect a whole bunch of new customers this year, generate more revenue, and then next year make our commitment into the solution area. So again, there's not a right or a wrong to it. There will be some argument in terms of whether the actual green, yellow, red metrics are relevant for your business. Right? But it's just a tool to be used to drive clarity.
That's a good answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah. And don't get alarmed if there's a lot of red, because there usually is, especially in marketing. Yeah. Right? But the purpose at the end over here is to say, okay, where do we fit in the grid? Is that where we want to be? And then where are the strengths and weaknesses of those 6 dimensions? And what you'll find over time is the assessment will change. We launched this version at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're already making adjustments with Microsoft now because we've learned more, and some metrics have changed, and some are less important, and some are more important. So you're going to expect this thing to be kind of a fluid document over time. But really, it's designed for you to get clarity around where the strengths and weaknesses are. Yes?
A lot unique to a nurturing program by wireless stuff. And one of the things we're finding is that the tools, like with ransomware coming up now, a lot of the security tools click on all the links, they open all the email, and it's really throwing off the stats on opens and clicks. And is that just our good luck, or is everybody having that problem right now, kind of thing?
No, everyone's having that problem. So the question was, with ransomware, which is a huge issue and a massive opportunity, by the way. How many people here have got some kind of solution set or offer anchored in that? Yeah, ransomware is the GDPR of North America in terms of opportunity. Tell you that right now. But no, everyone's feeling the pain. It will get harder and harder moving forward, right, to get to people. Right? So the solution to that, kind of bleeding into this afternoon, is you got to start to think about creating interesting content that people will find. Right? The organic searches, I'm looking for neuralimpact.com, unlikely. Right? I'm looking for brain science, probably going to find us. Right? So the more you know about an industry or a segment or a workload, the clearer you become on the business problems behind them, the easier it is to create rich content. Right? But the problem we have is, from the time you create the content to the time you start to get the leads take some time. And that's where we get frustrated. Right? So this URL that you have here on the bottom, I'm just going to quickly flip over to it. It will have half a dozen other assets that we're going to talk about as we go through the day. Right? It will have some sales tools. It'll have some guides in there. Right? So we create one of these for every workshop, basically so you have a place to go to kind of download stuff. And if we talk about things during the day that I haven't thought about in advance, I put them up there tonight, and then you can access them and get them from there as well. Right? So the URL. Anyone got into the URL? Just want to make sure it works? Yeah, okay, good. We're all good.